the Anglican Bishop of the Christian Episcopal Church, Reverend Dr. Gavin Ashenden. It's quite the introduction, that, I must say. And human rights lawyer Shoaib Khan as well. Thank you very much, both of you. I think in the current context of what we're talking about, it's probably only fair that I go to the religious chap first. So we'll go to you, Gavin. Do you think that religious figures like the Archbishop of Canterbury should maybe stay out of our border control discussion, or at least stop floating additional policy, maybe?
Everyone's entitled to have a view about the political future of this country, and there are two views when it comes to migration. One is the view that you want to have compassion on people seeking a better life, and the other view is that you have a duty to people whose country it is, and who need some form of social stability and social cohesion. I'm talking from Normandy in France at the moment, and France has been overwhelmed by social conflagration produced by rioters from people who were immigrants, and the difficulties that's caused French society have just been enormous. The reason that Justin Welby shouldn't talk about it is because he has responsibility to Anglicans who represent both sides of the political spectrum, and he can't pursue one political solution without betraying people for whom he's supposed to have a spiritual and pastoral brief on the other. So he in particular is not entitled to pursue one view of this without giving some expression to the other. And actually it's very bad form. It's very bad policy for an archbishop not to understand that the role he's supposed to play in the nation is wider than having a political brief.
Well, I do, as I understand it anyway, believe that congregations are dwindling a little bit when it comes to the Anglican Church in this country, and potentially it's because when they see the Archbishop stand up and get involved in something so overtly like that actually a lot of people in England disagree with, maybe that turns them off going to church. But I'll bring you in now, human rights lawyer Shoaib Khan. Shoaib, thank you very much. Do you think that it is the right thing to do to have the religious element, i.e., if you want to be considered a holy person, you have to believe in open borders? I mean, we already have human rights. You dine out on them. Why do we need the religious lot getting involved?
Because I think that is what religion is. That is what Christianity is. That is what, I hesitate to give any particular, declaration on how Christ would have reacted. But the point is, that's what Islam is. That is what the great religions do. They talk about morality. They talk about humanitarianism. They talk about humanity. And if we are going to have these religious leaders, many of them who are paid from public funds, and, many of whom people pay, then I think these are exactly the issues that they need to be a part of. If, for instance, Justin Welby is going to be part of the Queen's funeral, or when the monarch is being coronated, then why not? I mean, when he thinks that something is happening and the government is acting in a way that is inhumane or reprehensible or immoral, then I think that is what religion is. Otherwise, I don't see the point. What is the point of religious leaders if when people are being made to suffer, they won't speak out? That is the exact point of, that is the reason for their existence.
There is that argument, Dr. Gavin. There is that argument that they should look at whatever their interpretation of whatever their particular religious book is, and when they are asked a political question, they should voice that view. I mean, do you think that Jesus would want open borders?
One of the things that Jesus did is he didn't talk about current political problems because he wanted us to concentrate on the salvation of our souls and getting to heaven. He was invited all the time to comment on political Roman issues, and he always avoided it. But the trouble with the argument you just heard is it's only half the argument. It's presuming that all compassion belongs to people who are in favor of open migration and open borders. It pays no attention whatsoever to the needs of people settled in communities who suffer deeply from social cohesion. There was a Frenchman who had his arm chopped off as he tried to stop rioters destroying his property in France. France is on a knife edge at the moment. Are you not allowed to have any compassion for the people who live in France, whose societies are being trashed by this level of riot and immigration? Of course you are. It's absolute nonsense to say that humanitarian concerns belong to only one side and they are the privilege of open borders and uncontrolled immigration. I would say the opposite is true. It's a profoundly destabilizing policy which causes an immense misery and potential instability to settled countries throughout the world, and it needs to be controlled in order to have a proper balance between the interests of immigrants and the interests of settled communities.
I suppose it's one thing, Shoaib, saying, look, I think that Jesus or whatever particular religious figures that the other denominations have signed up to believe in would have wanted this. It's another thing to then start floating additional policy on top of that. So the Archbishop's job in the House of Lords is to look at government policy, scrutinise it, try to see if there are any particular holes in it, and then maybe knock it back or wave it through. But what he's now doing is floating something else entirely, which is we should be part of a wider international refugee community with a long-term plan. And I just wonder whether or not, potentially there, he's abusing the cloth to just put forward his own political agenda. If he wanted to do that, he could stand for election, produce a manifesto and see if anyone wants to vote for him, couldn't he?
So I'll just address a few quick points. So firstly, in terms of what what was just said about compassion, not being the domain of just one school of thought or one political party or so on. The point is that if that's the argument we're having, that we think what the government is doing is compassionate, then that's a completely different argument from saying that Justin Welby should not have a view, or if he has a view, he should not express it. I think that's a completely different debate. But secondly, in terms of what you just said, in terms of Justin Welby, but I think the reason we or people like him have to do that is because otherwise, like you've heard for decades, whenever we oppose any government policy, what they say as well, you have no solution either. Even though all of us have solutions and we have been advocating for them and suggesting them, the point is if he hadn't made that suggestion, people would say, well, you have no ideas, you don't know what to do, so why are you criticizing the government? And the point is he has come up with a humane, balanced, compassionate, practical solution. And now that he has, now we're saying, well, stay out of politics. Why are you suggesting policy? So the point is, people like him who are opposing the government just can't win. Are they supposed to suggest alternatives or not?
Okay, it's interesting because, whilst I obviously disagree with what his alternative is, especially in the context of what we're already doing, I suppose at least he has actually suggested something, and I am sick and tired of people just standing up in the House of Commons, especially in the House of Commons, not just in the House of Lords, and absolutely slating everything. Gavin, just one more quick one with you, if that's all right, Gavin, which is as a Christian, are you slightly concerned about the head of the Church of England, which I appreciate is not your sect of Christianity, I suppose, the head of the Church of England being so comfortable welcoming in so many people who, I dare say, are not Christian? Or does that not bother you?
I was very distressed when the Syrian refugees came to Europe, and it became Home Office policy to let in tiny proportions of Christians, almost none, and almost universally Muslims. Demographics are that by 2050 in both France and England, there'll be more Muslims than any other group. And that strikes me as being a profoundly destabilizing and problematic future. It's set in the demographics already. I think for the Archbishop of Canterbury to make it worse or to intensify it without any public debate, because the media won't talk about it, is absolutely off limits.
Okay.
But for him to propose making it more intense seems to me to be a dereliction of responsibility without proper public discussion.
Final word to you on that show, but I'll let you respond.
Yeah, I completely obviously support the Archbishop here. I think it's right he speaks out about this. I think it's right that other religious leaders speak about that is their role. That's what I think they are there for. Obviously, if we disagree with what they're saying, we think what they're suggesting is in fact inhumane and not compassionate, then that's an argument we can have. But to somehow be seeking to silence them, I think it's completely wrong.
Okay, look, both of you, thank you very much. I really enjoyed that. I hope both of you have a fascinating discussion. Anglican Bishop of the Christian Episcopal Church, I should have rehearsed that, Reverend Dr. Gavin Ashton and human rights lawyer Shoaib Khan as well. Thank you very much, both of you. Right, okay, get your views coming in, GB Views.